Hi, welcome to Tuesdays with Terra. I'm Terra Bundance, and today I'm going to talk about the space between. So, I've been having conversations lately that keep intertwining with each other. Conversations about the middle path or the space between. What does that really mean? What I've discovered over the past few weeks is that what lives there is spirit. What lives there is God. What lives there is kind of universal truth. Because to me, it represents the 0 point or the space where death and life happens. So just take a moment to really tap into the energy of the phrases or the words that I'm going to use to describe the place between, the space in between. One of them is whenever you're listening to music and you hear a chord that just sounds dissonant, but it's perfect for the song. And right before it hits resolution, right before it moves into that place of like resolving the chord, it's that space in between that causes a kind of a breath or an anticipation. You don't know exactly what's next, but it feels really good because it's moving into something. Same kind of energy happens between the in breath and the out breath, or the out breath and the in breath. That space between the breath, when you've let all the air out, and then you take a breath in and you release that breath, that space in between. If you've ever jumped off of a high board into a pool, or if you've ever jumped out of an airplane into midair, the space just before you jump, when you know you're going to do it, but you haven't quite taken that step, but you're just about to do that moment of the step, that's the moment that I'm talking about. Have you ever heard crickets or birds outside when they're just going huge amounts of sound, just chattering away or chirping away, and all the sound is just taking up the energy of the space that's outside? And then suddenly there's a moment when all sound pauses. They all stop at exactly the same time. It happens more often than you think. So if you can, just take a moment when you hear birds outside talking to each other, just hordes of birds, or if you hear crickets at night, or frogs singing in unison together, just take a moment to listen, 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 and then hear the pause. It's like, are they going to start back? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but we don't know. Another place is just before an orgasm. So, any kind of thing that you can feel that's about to break through into something else, that's the space I'm talking about. Now, anytime we feel ourselves moving through something that's stressful, there seems to come a place where that pause before breakthrough or that pause before breakdown happens. And it's kind of like the eye of the storm or the calm before the storm. So when you feel that energy, notice and recognize that that's the place where anything can happen. Anything can come to life in that moment, or anything can die or resolve in that moment. So, the reason that I'm talking about that place in between is because we have so many things going on in our world all the time that give us a chance to feel into that or to lean into that when things aren't going well in your own life, or when things seem to not be going well in society. We can see a moment where things are going to break, things are going to shift, things are going to take the next step. And those are the moments where we, as individuals, and we can come together as groups and do like meditative groups or anything like that. But as an individual, we have a choice during those moments of pause to put something good or something not so good into it. So we can put fear into it, as in terms of, I'm worried about the next thing. I'm worried that it's going to turn out poorly. We're feeding that energy into the possibility. And so the other thought we could have is, I truly believe that we can take the next step on our journey in a positive way. And you put positive energy into it. And that is feeding into that energy as well. So we think about the law of mind or the law of the universe, and we think about all these laws and patterns and things that come together to work together. And the law of mind is one of those laws that basically says if we're all putting our thoughts and energies towards a certain thing, towards a certain outcome, towards a certain belief or an energy, and the more people are doing that, the more often it's going to turn out a certain way that the majority of the people are thinking. So when we, as a group or a community of people, can come together and meditate and put our energy and our hearts and our thoughts into a new truth, a new reality, a new belief, something that creates a new idea into existence, 0.1% of the population of any given space. It could be a town, it could be your home, it could be the planet, it could be the universe, like 0.1% of any group can help shift the energy and the vibration of an idea and help push it into the next evolved thing. And so kind of think about what you do in that in between space when you're starting to notice some major change is possibly coming, but you're not sure if it's going to go in the direction of something negative or something positive. What do you put into that space? Do you put into it a positive thought? Do you put into it some kind of EFT? Do you put into it some kind of meditation, mantra, positive thought? Or do you put into it worry? Oh my goodness, this is going to turn out bad. Do you put into it, everything falls apart anyway, so it's probably going to happen again? Do you put into it something like, these things always happen to me, you know? So we've got so many different ways of looking at it. What's some positive things that we can put into that? What's a positive mantra? It could be when you do EFT, you say things like, even though I have this old belief, I completely love and accept myself, and I'm willing to accept the possibility of something new. That's one way that you can do some tapping. So if you're thinking about a particular thing that's happening in your life that you want to shift the energy around, are you always putting into it an idea that's not supportive of that change? Or are you putting into it some idea that there's a possibility change could happen and it could be for my good, for the benefit of all? And so one thing you could say is, I believe in the possibility of something good. I believe in the possibility of something positive coming out of this. I trust the process of the universe. See, there's so many things that we can say that don't necessarily feed into, well, I don't know if I really believe that yet, so I'm not able to say, I know that this is going to turn out well. But what you can say is, I know that there's a possibility this could turn out well, and lean into that. And then if you do some EFT, or if you do a focus wheel, or if you do some kind of meditation or some kind of prayer or energy work around Reiki, anything that you feel called to around the energy moving in the direction of that possibility is very likely. It's just as likely as it not turning out well with the negative thoughts that we've already been putting into it anyway. So we might as well try something different, try something new. So this week, notice any of the pauses, those moments of anticipation, those 0 point frequencies where the Taurus point comes around, that Taurus energy that's always creating and destroying, that space that's just in the middle of the flower of life, right at the center point, anything that creates this idea of something new possibly happening. In that space is a vast space of possibilities. We can create our reality as long as we're aware of where those creations happen. They happen in those brief moments when we could go one way or the other with our thoughts. We can repeat an idea over and over and over again, a mantra over and over and over again. And the more we repeat that mantra, the more it's going to fit into those little tiny moments, those little 0 point moments. And so saying a mantra over and over again, meditating over and over again, doing EFT, doing, any of the energy work that you choose to do. When you bring energy into something on a consistent basis, it's going to show up eventually where it pops into that 0 point moment. And then there's other times when you may not realize that you're saying anything negative, or that you're throwing a negative idea or thought into your regular thoughts. And then in that brief moment, when you notice the pause, you can go, wait a minute, I can create something different. So try to notice those moments this week. Try to notice when those things come about, that you can start shifting your perspective, shifting your ideas, shifting your thoughts, your beliefs, the way that you speak to yourself, the way that you speak to the universe, the way that you speak to others. We can create from a place of happy, joyful, positive energy, or we can create from a place of fear and lack and negative thoughts. So, that doesn't mean happy butterfly rainbow ideas are the only thing that can change any of those thoughts, that we have to ignore our negative thoughts. No, we listen to our negative thoughts, we notice them, we pay attention to them, we bring them out into the surface, we bring them out to the outside realm. We look at them, we name them, we express our awareness of them, and then we decide whether or not we're willing to change them. We can't just live in bliss and extreme happiness all the time, because some sad things are going to cause us to fall and break down. And that's okay. From that place comes an evolved energy also. It's just about recognizing where we can change our patterns, those brain patterns, those synapses that are just constantly communicating with each other. If we can disrupt some of those negative synapse connections, that's going to help change our energy. That's going to help to change the outcome from negative to positive. So I'm just throwing these thoughts out there, just throwing these ideas out there. Share with me what you think. Share with me your thoughts about this idea. What happens when we notice the spaces in between? What do we create in those places? We can create something powerful, something good, something beautiful. We can create all the great, wonderful things that we want in our lives. We can also create the negative. We can create the not so great. And so let's be more present. Let's be more aware of that space in between when you're meditating and you take the in breath and you pause at the top. What's your thought in that moment? When you breathe out and you pause at the bottom, what's your thought in that moment? When you're about to have an orgasm, what's your thought in that moment? When you feel the dissonant chord move from one dissonance to a resolution in music, what's your thought in that moment? Those are all possible moments of 0 point frequency where we create or we destroy ideas, beliefs, concepts. Are you willing to try that this week? If so, please share with me down below in the comments what your outcomes are, how you feel about this particular thought or idea. I just have been noticing the conversation coming around to that a lot in the last few weeks. So I'm just curious what others might think about it. So thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great and blessed week, and I'll see you next week on Tuesdays with Terra.